Hello and welcome to our video on graphing parabolas by finding X-intercepts. Now I've got some steps down here in green that show you how to graph a parabola. I'm just going to read through these steps first and then we'll do an example together. To sketch a graph of a parabola when you are given the equation, use the following steps. Number one, you need to decide if it is a positive or a negative parabola. If it's a positive, it's going to look like a happy face. If it's a negative, it's going to look like a sad face. And then you need to draw your axes. So draw them nice and big on your piece of paper next to your working so you can fill in all the dots and all the things you need to add to it. Step 2, find the y-intercept by making x equals 0 and put a dot when you get there. So you'll find the y-intercept will be somewhere along the y-axis and just put a dot so we remember where it is. Another way you could do it, if your equation is written in expanded form, which would look something like this, ax squared plus bx plus c, you can just read the constant straight off the end, and this is your y-intercept. Step 3, you need to find the x-intercepts by making y equals 0. And this is a step that trips up a lot of people. You might need to factorize and use the null factor law to solve to make y equals 0. Once you've done that, you need to put 2 dots if there's 2 x-intercepts. Step 4, find the x value of the turning point, which will be halfway between the 2 x-intercepts. That's one method. Another method is to look at the 2 x-intercepts divided by 2, so find the average of the 2, and that'll give you the x value. Or you can use another formula from the expanded form, which is negative b over 2 times a. So this is referring to this b and this a, and that will find you the x value as well. So three different methods you can use. You can choose whichever one works best for you. Just remember, this a and b doesn't refer to this a and b. It just refers to the 2 x-intercepts. Actually, how about I change that to x1 and x2. That would make more sense. Step 5, find the y value of the turning point by substituting the x value that you found in this step 4 back into your original equation. That's the one you were given right at the very beginning. Put a dot when you find that value. And the final step is to join all the dots up and make sure your graph is fully labelled. Okay, let's try an example. The first one I'm going to look at doing is y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. You might like to pause the video now and have a go at going through the steps. Otherwise you can keep watching to see the solution. Okay, I'm going to put my steps in red so you can easily follow. So I'm just going to number them. And they refer to the numbers on the steps I've put on the page above. Step 1 is to decide if it's positive or negative. We need to look at the sign in front of the x squared term, and here there is no sign, which means it's a positive. So it's a positive graph, and it's going to look something like this, a happy face. Other part of step 1 is to draw your axes, so you are ready to put all your dots on when you find each of the points. You would use a ruler. It's very difficult for me to use a ruler on a computer screen, but your lines would be completely straight. Step 2 is to find the y-intercept by making x equals 0. We use this original equation, y equals, and instead of x we put 0. 0 squared minus 2x minus 3. Oh, not x, we put 0 in there. And that's going to end up equaling negative 3. This is already given to us in expanded form, so we could have just read the negative 3 off the constant at the end there as well. Either method works. Then you need to put a dot at negative 3 and label it. Okay, step 3 is to find the x-intercepts by making y equals 0. So I'm writing out my formula again. Start with 0 instead of y. X squared minus 2x minus 3. And you remember when we tried to solve quadratic equations, we can't use inverse operations. Most of the time, sometimes we can. Most of the time we can't. This one won't be able to be solved by using inverse operations, so we need to factorize first. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to make negative 3 and add to make minus 2. So I'm going to put my two numbers over here, 3 and 1. Make negative 3. One of them is going to have to be 0. I'll try negative 3 plus 1, and it equals negative 2, so we're set. If it didn't, I would have tried the negative on the 1. So now I've got my two numbers, x take 3, x plus 1 equals 0. And using the null factor law, we get x equals 3 or x equals negative 1. And the last part of our step 3, once we've found our two x-intercepts, is to put some dots in. So x equals 3 and negative 1. Okay, step 4 is going to go on to the next page, but don't worry, I'll come back to finish off the graph. Step 4 is to find the x value of the turning point, which is halfway between the two x values here. So halfway between negative 1 and 3 is positive 1. You might like to look at that by drawing a number line. Negative 1 and 3, and work out what the halfway point is. It should be here, positive 1. The other methods that you could have used were to do x1 plus x2 divided by 2, which would be negative 1 plus 3 divided by 2. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2 on 2, which equals 1, which is what we came up with here. The third method was to use x equals negative b over 2a, looking at our original equation, which is this one here, just with a y. Negative 2, because there's a negative here and there's a negative 2 here, over 2 times a is the number in front of x squared, so 2 times 1. So that's 2 over 2, which equals 1. Any of those methods will get you to the x value of 1. Turning point, x equals 1. Okay, it's going to be on this side, so I might just erase this and move it to the other side. It's going to be about here. Oh, not negative 1, positive 1. Now we need to find this y value, and that is our step 5. Substitute the x value found above here into the original equation to find the y value. So here's my original equation. Y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. y equals 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 3. 1 minus 2 minus 3, which equals -4. When you've got that y value, you can add it in here. And our final step, step 6, is to just join the dots. Make sure you've got a smooth curve. And make sure you have all of your parts of your graph labelled. Need to remember that 2 axes need to be labelled. Intercepts, Y-intercept, X-intercepts, and turning point. So this graph is fully labelled. Thanks for watching the video today.